Alright, picture this, it's the mid-1800s, but our guy Henry David Thoreau, aka HDT, but we'll call him Henry, is basically living the life of a solo YouTuber doing the ultimate I left society to live in the woods challenge. Except this isn't some gimmicky 24-hour thing. He's dead serious about it, like Naruto on his path to becoming Hokage. And in the first part of his economy chapter, he's out here spilling the tea on why he ditched the rat race to become the OG minimalist king. Spoiler, it's not just to vibe with nature, it's to figure out life without all the extra BS. So, let's break it down. Henry starts off by saying, yo, society's priorities? All kinds of messed up. People are out here flexing on each other with big houses, fancy clothes, and dead up to their necks, working jobs they hate just to keep up appearances. It's like everyone's stuck in an infinite loop of grind, spend, repeat. You know how everyone freaks out when a new iPhone drops and suddenly your perfectly fine phone feels ancient? That's the vibe Henry's calling out, but for his time, he's roasting the 1840s version of the drip culture. But our boy isn't here to just hate. He's all about solutions. He's like, listen, you don't need all this stuff to be happy. Food, shelter, clothing, and fuel. That's it. Those are the real essentials. Everything else? It's like the filler episodes in an anime. Sure, they're there, but do they really add anything to the plot? Nah. And when you strip life down to these basics, you're left with time and freedom to actually, live. He's not saying you have to eat cold beans in a cave forever, but maybe don't max out your life energy chasing Gucci boots you'll only wear twice. Henry dives into how people keep putting themselves in these weird situations, like building giant houses they can't afford. Back then, folks had to do everything by hand, which made it even wilder. Imagine grinding for years to build a Minecraft castle block by block and then not even enjoying it because you're too busy mining for rent money. That's what Henry's seeing all around him. He's like, why are we making life harder than it needs to be? He drops this killer metaphor about how people's lives are basically weighted down with stuff they don't need. He's out here saying, yo, you're carrying all this baggage for no reason. Just let it go. Go full KonMari on your life. Now, Henry's not just pointing fingers. He's done the math. Literally. He's like the friend who goes, if you just stopped buying Starbucks every day, you'd save enough for a trip to Japan. He runs the numbers on how much it actually costs to live simply. And the receipts are in, it's way cheaper than you think. When he built his cabin, he didn't roll up to Home Depot and splurge. Nah, he scavenged materials, kept it low-key, and made it happen for less than what most people spend on a Netflix subscription these days. He's proving that you don't need to sell your soul to the corporate overlords to survive. But Henry's not just about houses. He's coming for fashion, too. He's like, why are you spending all your gold coins on the drip when it's just gonna wear out anyway? He's all for functional over fancy. Imagine him rolling up to the Met Gala in a plain tunic and being like, what's up? It's sustainable. He's not wrong, though. Clothes should keep you warm and covered, not put you in debt for months. Henry's vibe is less Louis Vuitton, more survival mode in The Legend of Zelda. Sure, the fancy armor's cool, but a simple tunic gets the job done just fine. Then, Henry gets real philosophical. He's asking the big questions, why do we do what we do? Why are we running around chasing things we don't even need? It's like he's looking at humanity and thinking, y'all are NPCs stuck in the same boring questline. When are you gonna choose your own adventure? He believes life's supposed to be more than just grinding for cash and clout. It's about growth, experience, and leveling up your spirit. He's basically giving us the blueprint for a peaceful, fulfilling existence. At this point, Henry takes a detour to roast education systems. He's like, why are we forcing kids to learn all this random stuff that won't even help them in real life? It's not that he hates learning, far from it. He's all about knowledge. But he thinks the system's broken, like a buggy game that keeps crashing when you try to progress. Instead of teaching people how to thrive, it's just loading them up with useless info and debt. Sound familiar? Henry doesn't stop there. He comes for jobs, too. He's like, most of you are working gigs you hate just to afford stuff you don't even want. How does that make sense? It's like he's watching someone spend hours grinding in a game only to buy a skin they'll never use. He's telling us to step back, reevaluate, and maybe focus on quests that actually matter. Build a life you don't need to escape from. Revolutionary, right? One of the coolest things about Henry's vibe is that he's not anti-progress or anti-wealth. He's just anti-waste. He's like, look, if you're gonna work, make it count. And if you're gonna spend, make sure it's on stuff that actually improves your life. He's all about efficiency, not stinginess. It's like he's out here min-maxing real life, figuring out how to get the most happiness and freedom with the least effort and expense. By the end of this first half, Henry's set the stage for his grand experiment. He's ready to show the world that it's possible to live deliberately, with purpose and clarity, without getting caught up in society's endless hamster wheel. He's not trying to preach from some high horse. Nah, he's walking the talk, literally living in a cabin he built with his own 2 hands. It's like he's saying, if I can do it, so can you. So, there you have it. In the first half of Economy, Henry's basically the chill yet woke friend we all need. He's calling out the nonsense, dropping wisdom, and reminding us that life doesn't have to be this complicated grind. He's the real MVP, showing us how to unplug from the matrix and live life on our own terms. If that's not legendary, I don't know what is. Alright, so in the second half of Economy, Henry David Thoreau is full on in his let me show you how it's done mode. Imagine a YouTuber doing a DIY survival guide, but instead of crafting a sick treehouse in Minecraft, he's out here building a legit cabin in the woods IRL. No clickbait titles or crazy edits, just pure, unfiltered, hands-on vibes. And trust me, Henry's got the receipts to back up his experiment. He's spilling the details on how he went off the grid and made it work, and it's equal parts practical genius and minimalist flex. So, Henry starts by telling us how he built his cabin. Picture him rolling up with nothing but some tools and a vision. He's like, alright, I'm not gonna hire a crew or hit up Lowe's. I'll scavenge, hustle, and make this happen for the cheapest possible price. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty, which is kind of inspiring. He borrows an axe, yes, borrows, our man's thrifty, and starts chopping trees like he's in an early level of Stardew Valley. The dude's got mad crafting skills, turning logs into a cozy little cabin with his bare hands. And the cost? Less than $30. That's less than what you'd spend on a decent haul at Taco Bell these days. Henry's got this whole if you build it, you'll appreciate it more philosophy. He's like, when you put in the sweat and effort, it's yours in a way money can't buy. And honestly, he's got a point. Think about how good it feels to finish something in a game you've been grinding on for hours, whether it's beating a tough boss in Dark Souls or finally upgrading your Animal Crossing island. Now take that feeling and multiply it by real-life stakes. That's Henry building his cabin. But he's not just talking about cabins. No, our man's got to bring up food, too. He's like, you don't need to drop mad cash at Whole Foods to eat well. Instead of splurging on artisan bread and avocado toast, he's growing beans like it's his side hustle. He's got this whole bean field operation going, and he's doing the math to prove how cost-effective it is. Imagine playing Harvest Moon, but instead of worrying about impressing villagers, you're just trying to vibe with nature and keep your expenses low. That's Henry's energy. And the best part? He's not out here starving himself or eating bland food. He's living proof that simple, wholesome eating can be delicious and sustainable. Henry's also super into the idea of self-reliance. He's like, why pay someone else to do something you can learn to do yourself? Whether it's building, farming, or cooking, he's all about leveling up his personal skill tree. It's like he's playing a solo RPG where the main quest is mastering the art of living. And yeah, it might take a bit more effort, but the payoff? Total freedom. He doesn't have to depend on anyone else for the basics, and that's a pretty empowering vibe. Of course, Henry's not just grinding 24/7. He's all about enjoying the simple pleasures, too. He's like, once you've got the essentials covered, you've got all this free time to actually enjoy life. No stressing over bills, no FOMO from scrolling Instagram, just pure, unfiltered living. He's out here watching the seasons change, listening to birds, and reflecting on life like some kind of Zen master. It's the kind of peace and clarity you'd get if you put your phone on airplane mode for a week and just existed. And honestly, it sounds kind of amazing. But don't get it twisted. Henry's not about isolating himself forever or becoming a total hermit. He's like, I'm doing this to learn, not to avoid people. He wants to figure out what actually matters in life, and you can't do that when you're drowning in distractions. It's like he's unplugging from the matrix to see the world for what it really is. And what he's finding is that most of the stuff we think we need. Pure fluff. You don't need a massive house, designer clothes, or gourmet meals to be happy. You just need the basics and a little room to breathe. One of the coolest parts of Henry's experiment is how he's keeping it real about money. He's not saying you should never spend or that money's evil. He's just saying, be smart about it. Spend on what really matters. He's out here budgeting like a pro, tracking every expense, and proving that you don't need a ton of cash to live well. It's like he's playing The Sims with the motherload cheat turned off, and he's still thriving. Henry's also dropping some deep thoughts about work. He's like, why waste your life grinding at a job you hate just to buy stuff you don't need? He's all for working hard, but only if it's meaningful and not just for the sake of flexing. It's like he's asking, are you working to live, or living to work? And honestly, that's a question a lot of us could use right now. By the end of this section, Henry's pretty much laid out the blueprint for his simple life, big vibes philosophy. He's shown us that you don't need to go broke or burn out to live a good life. You just need to focus on the essentials, cut out the noise, and embrace the freedom that comes with living intentionally. It's not always easy, but it's totally worth it. So yeah, Henry's second half of Economy is basically the ultimate guide to adulting, but make it chill and meaningful. It's about ditching the rat race, finding your own path, and proving that less really can be more. And if that's not peak life wisdom, I don't know what is. Alright, buckle up, because chapters 2 and 3 of Walden are Henry David Thoreau's deep dive into what it really means to live your best life. Chapter 2, Where I Lived, and What I Lived For, is basically Henry saying, let me tell you why I ditched the drama and moved to Walden Pond. He's out here looking at life like it's a sandbox game, the kind where you don't get a tutorial, so you've got to figure out what's worth your energy. And spoiler, it's not chasing clout or grinding for a mansion. Henry's goal is to live deliberately, which is his fancy way of saying, I'm gonna cut the noise, focus on the basics, and see what life's really about. He kicks things off by reminiscing about how he scoped out different spots before settling on Walden Pond. Imagine him as your friend who's house hunting on Zillow, but instead of looking at square footage and backyard pools, he's all about the vibe. He's not interested in some fancy, overpriced plot of land. Nope. He's drawn to Walden Pond because it's peaceful, quiet, and feels like the perfect stage for his live-action Finding Myself arc. And when he moves in, he's basically saying, this is my main quest now, simplify, unplug, and really live. Henry's philosophy here is pure gold. He's like, why rush through life as if there's a finish line? Why not slow down and actually experience it? It's the ultimate anti-hustle culture speech. He's calling out people who spend their days chasing money or prestige but never actually stop to enjoy the ride. He's saying, hey, maybe put down the phone and look around for a second. There's beauty everywhere if you're paying attention. And he's not just spouting poetic stuff for the sake of it. He's living it. Waking up at dawn, rowing on the pond, soaking in the quiet, he's vibing with nature like it's a Studio Ghibli movie come to life. What really hits, though, is when Henry starts talking about living simply. He's like, do we really need all this stuff we're hoarding? Or are we just distracting ourselves? It's giving Major Marie Kondo energy. He's all about cutting out the fluff and focusing on what sparks joy. And for him, that means ditching the materialism and embracing the natural world. He wants to see what life is like when you strip it down to its core, like playing a game on hardcore mode, no cheats, no shortcuts. Now, Chapter 3, Reading, is Henry's love letter to books. He's basically like, yo, books are the real treasure. Not gold, not fame, but the wisdom you get from great writing. He's throwing major respect to the classics, saying they're the key to leveling up your brain. And when he says classics, he's talking ancient texts, like Homer and the Bhagavad Gita. It's the equivalent of rewatching Avatar, The Last Airbender, and realizing it's even better than you remembered. Henry's convinced that these works hold timeless truths that can help you figure out your own journey. But he's not just out here hyping up books like some elitist snob. He's genuinely sad that so many people don't appreciate good literature. He's like, why are y'all sleeping on this? Reading can literally change your life. It's like he's watching people binge trashy reality shows instead of checking out a masterpiece anime like Attack on Titan. Henry's dream? A world where everyone takes reading seriously, treating it like the art form it is. He's basically saying, y'all, books are free XP for your mind. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? And let's not forget how Henry ties this all back to his big theme, living deliberately. He's not reading just to kill time. Nah, he's reading to grow, to think deeper, to get closer to that ultimate truth he's chasing. It's like he sees books as cheat codes for understanding life, not in a get-rich-quick way, but in a see-the-big-picture way. And honestly, he's onto something. Because whether it's ancient texts or your favorite fantasy series, the best stories make you think about your own life in new and unexpected ways. So yeah, chapters 2 and 3 are all about Henry diving headfirst into this experiment of his. He's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk, showing us what it looks like to live simply, think deeply, and focus on what really matters. It's like he's out here reminding us that life doesn't have to be this endless grind for stuff or status. Instead, it can be something much more real, much more fulfilling. And if that's not the kind of lesson worth paying attention to, then what is? Alright, squad, let me drop some knowledge about chapters 4 and 5 of Walden by your boy Henry David Thoreau. Imagine this dude, living out in the woods like he's the main character in his own indie survival game. He's got big I need to touch grass energy, but not because he's stressed, he just vibes with nature on a spiritual level. So, in chapter 4, which he calls Sounds, Thoreau is straight up obsessed with all the noise around him, but not like city noise or your neighbor's car alarm at 3 a.m. He's tuning into nature's mixtape, and he's absolutely living for it. Then in chapter 5, Solitude, he levels up his introspection game and goes full zen mode, acting like he's about to unlock the secrets of the universe. Let's break it down like we're reviewing the hottest new RPG, shall we? So, in chapter 4, Thoreau's out here flexing his minimalist lifestyle in the woods by Walden Pond. He's like that one friend who trades their gaming console for a journal and some crystals, low-key crunchy but kind of admirable. Instead of grinding for gear, Thoreau's grinding for inner peace, and the soundtrack of his grind is all the natural sounds around him. Birds chirping, wind rustling, rain tapping on the roof, these are his boss fight themes, and he's fully immersed. He goes on about how these sounds aren't just background noise, they're like NPCs in his personal story, giving him quests to think deeper and connect with the world. The way he talks about the train, though, is wild. Picture him chilling by the tracks, watching the train zoom by like it's a god-tier speedrunner. He's not mad about it interrupting the piece, though. Instead, he's like, yo, this is the future, and it's kind of fascinating. He calls the train the Iron Horse because, apparently, steampunk vibes are eternal. It's a mix of awe and critique, like he's hyped about progress, but also side-eyeing how loud and disruptive it is. He compares the train's sound to thunder and says it's dragging the news of the world with it. If trains could talk, they'd probably be gossiping about TikTok drama or spilling tea on global politics. But Thoreau isn't just vibing with the sounds of technology. He's way more into the organic stuff, like crickets and frogs. He describes their noises like it's a lo-fi beats playlist, calming, rhythmic, and perfect for studying the meaning of life. He listens to the hoots of owls and the distant barking of dogs like they're late-night voice chats in a chilled Discord server. And when he's not listening to nature, he's appreciating the silence between the sounds, which, let's be real, is kind of deep. Silence, to Thoreau, isn't empty, it's like the pause in a cut scene where you're soaking in the atmosphere before something big happens. Moving on to chapter 5, Thoreau levels up his inner peace game with solitude. He starts off flexing about how not lonely he feels, even though he's living solo in a cabin that's basically one step above a starter base in Minecraft. He's all like, people think I'm lonely, but honestly, I've never felt more connected. It's like when you log off social media for a week and suddenly remember how cool clouds and trees are. Thoreau's got this whole I'm my own best friend energy, and it's kind of inspiring. He goes on to say that loneliness isn't about being alone, it's about feeling disconnected. And since he's vibing with nature like it's his squad, he's never truly alone. He describes the woods around him like they're alive, and he's part of some epic anime where the trees and the pond are his mentors, teaching him wisdom through their existence. Imagine being so chill that you consider pine needles your life coaches. That's Thoreau for you. Then there's this part where he's walking around his cabin and the woods, and he's straight up raving about how beautiful everything is. The stars at night? Chef's kiss. The sound of the wind? A banger. He compares nature to a vast, cosmic party, and he's the only human invited. The thing is, he doesn't even flex this like he's special. He genuinely thinks anyone could join the party if they just stopped doom scrolling and paid attention. He talks about the sky, the pond, and the trees like they're characters in his story, each with their own unique vibe and contributions to the plot. Thoreau also dives into some big brain territory about space and time, saying stuff like, I'm far from society, but society is just a construct anyway, bro. He's basically the original time is an illusion guy, hitting us with that high-level philosophical content. But he's not trying to sound pretentious, he's just sharing his thoughts, like a streamer doing a chill Q&A while exploring a gorgeous open-world game. He's amazed by how vast and endless the universe feels when he's out there, just him and nature. Honestly, he'd probably crush it in VR, he's all about immersion. And here's the kicker, Thoreau doesn't just talk the talk about solitude, he walks the walk. He's not out here saying everyone needs to ditch their lives and live in the woods, but he does think people should unplug and chill more. He's like, yo, stop grinding for clout and start grinding for clarity. He believes solitude isn't about being physically alone, it's about stepping back and getting some perspective. He's the kind of guy who'd tell you to meditate for 10 minutes a day, but instead of a mindfulness app, he'd suggest you sit by a lake and listen to frogs. One of the coolest things about Thoreau's solitude is how he turns it into a superpower. He's not lonely or bored, he's recharging. He compares himself to a pond reflecting the sky, which is both poetic and low-key like something out of a Studio Ghibli movie. His solitude isn't about shutting the world out, it's about letting the universe in. He's got this whole connected but disconnected vibe going on, which is honestly kind of goals. By the end of chapter 5, you're left feeling like Thoreau's not just some old-school hermit writing in the woods. He's a guy who's cracked the code on living intentionally, tuning into the world around him instead of getting lost in the noise. He's out here proving that sometimes, the best way to level up isn't by chasing more loot or followers, it's by pausing the game, stepping outside, and appreciating the beauty of the world you're already in. So yeah, Thoreau's chapters 4 and 5 are a whole vibe. He's like the original minimalist influencer, but instead of selling you on a trendy lifestyle brand, he's just out here saying, be present, appreciate the little things, and maybe go hug a tree or something. It's not about ditching everything and moving to the woods, unless you're into that, it's about finding your own Walden, your own space to reconnect with what really matters. If that's not peak main character energy, I don't know what is. Alright, buckle up, fam, because I'm about to spill the tea on chapters 6 and 7 of Walden, your boy Henry David Thoreau's guide to life, vibes, and the great outdoors. Think of this as Thoreau playing his IRL survival game, and these chapters are where he flexes on society's weird priorities and drops wisdom like he's the NPC sage in an open-world RPG. So, chapter 6, Visitors, starts with Thoreau living his best hermit life, but plot twist, he still gets visitors. And he's not out here swiping left on humanity either, he's genuinely stoked when people roll up to his cabin. He sees visitors as part of the game, like unexpected co-op players joining his solo run. But instead of raiding for loot, they're sharing stories and ideas. Thoreau's cabin might be low-key small and rustic, think starter base energy in Minecraft, but he keeps the vibes welcoming. He's like, pull up a log, friend, let's chat about life. And here's where Thoreau gets deep. He's not interested in small talk or clout-chasing convos. Nah, he's looking for that intellectual 1v1, he wants to talk about the stuff that really matters. He describes these meaningful interactions as rare but valuable, like finding a shiny Pokemon in the wild. He's all about connecting with people who challenge his thinking or share unique perspectives. If someone's rolling through just to gossip about the latest town drama, though, he's probably hitting the skip dialogue button in his head. One time, a woodcutter shows up, a regular dude who works hard and lives simply. Thoreau actually vibes with this guy because he's unpretentious and grounded, like the villager in a game who gives you solid advice instead of some cryptic prophecy. But even while respecting the woodcutter's down-to-earth hustle, Thoreau can't help noticing the dude is kind of stuck on the grind. He's like, bro, maybe take a second to appreciate the sky or something. Classic Thoreau, always ready to remind people to pause and smell the pine trees. Then there are the kids who show up. Thoreau loves their energy, straight-up shonen jump protagonist enthusiasm. He's hyped about how curious they are, and he thinks adults could learn a thing or two from their sense of wonder. It's like Thoreau sees the kids as pure adventurers who haven't been bogged down by society's boring side quests yet. He's all about keeping that curiosity alive, even when you're grown. Okay, let's slide into chapter 7, the bean field. And yeah, I know what you're thinking, beans? Really? But trust me, Thoreau makes farming sound way deeper than it has any right to be. He spends a chunk of his time cultivating this field of beans, and it's not just for food, it's like his side hustle that's also a metaphor for life. Planting beans becomes this whole spiritual grind where he's connecting with the earth, leveling up his patience, and reflecting on what it means to put in work for something real. Think of it as farming in Stardew Valley, but instead of chasing profits, he's chasing enlightenment. Thoreau gets super poetic about it, describing the rhythm of hoeing the field like it's a battle combo. He's out there under the sun, feeling the dirt, hearing the birds, and thinking, this is it, this is how humans are meant to live. He's living for the simplicity of it all, even though it's hard work. He compares farming to going to war, yeah, dramatic, but that's our boy, except instead of fighting people, he's fighting weeds and cultivating life. It's kind of wholesome when you think about it, like, he's creating instead of destroying. But Thoreau doesn't stop there. He starts roasting society again, like a true chaotic good character. He's all, y'all are out here chasing money and status, but I'm just chilling with my beans, and I feel richer than any of you. He's convinced that farming his little field is more meaningful than any 9-to-5 grind. And honestly, he's kind of got a point. While everyone else is stressed about bills and drama, Thoreau is out here vibing with his bean plants, feeling connected to nature, and living in the moment. Now, don't get it twisted, Thoreau isn't saying you need to drop everything and become a farmer to find meaning. What he's really on about is working with intention. He thinks most people are stuck doing jobs that don't fulfill them, grinding away for stuff they don't even need. Meanwhile, he's like, why not put your energy into something that actually feeds your soul? For him, that's farming beans, but it could be anything that makes you feel alive. He also gets philosophical about ownership, which is peak Thoreau. He's out there farming land he doesn't even own, and he's totally fine with it. He's like, does anyone really own the earth, though? Isn't it just loaning itself to us while we're here? It's some next-level life is temporary wisdom that feels straight out of a Legend of Zelda cutscene. He's basically saying that instead of hoarding land or wealth, people should just focus on living in harmony with what's around them. It's idealistic, sure, but it's also kind of beautiful. And oh man, the way Thoreau talks about nature in this chapter is pure poetry. He describes the sunrise hitting the fields and the mist rolling over the pond like it's a scene from a Studio Ghibli movie. You can practically see the golden light and hear the soft music swelling in the background. For Thoreau, these moments are the real riches in life, not gold, not clout, just the simple, unfiltered beauty of the world. By the end of chapter 7, you realize Thoreau isn't just farming beans for the sake of it. He's farming perspective, growing a deeper understanding of what matters, and harvesting some serious inner peace. It's like he's cracked the code on life, and he's out here trying to share the cheat sheet with us. He's saying, yo, stop chasing the stuff that doesn't matter and start tending to your own field, whatever that looks like for you. So, yeah, chapters 6 and 7 of Walden are low-key fire. Thoreau is all about human connection, meaningful work, and finding joy in the everyday. He's like that one wise elder character in a game who gives you cryptic advice that doesn't make sense until later, but when it clicks, it hits hard. He's not telling you to ditch society entirely, but he's definitely suggesting you rethink what you're grinding for. Maybe plant some beans. Maybe have a deep convo with a friend. Or maybe just sit by a pond and listen to the world for a bit. Whatever it is, make it count. Alright, squad, gather around because we're diving into chapters 8 and 9 of Walden by your main man, Henry David Thoreau. Imagine Thoreau still chilling in his cabin by Walden Pond, playing his real-life version of Animal Crossing, but with way more philosophy and fewer turnips. These chapters, the village and the ponds, are all about Thoreau stepping outside his cozy little nature bubble and reflecting on life's deeper truths like he's some sage anime protagonist. He's out here balancing solitude and society while hyping up the natural world, and honestly, it's a vibe. First up, Chapter 8, The Village. Thoreau takes a break from his Zen hermit routine to make a run to the local village, which is basically his version of venturing into the bustling hub in an RPG. You know, the spot where NPCs are everywhere, and side quests are hiding around every corner. He rolls in like, alright, let's see what the world is up to, but instead of just grabbing supplies or catching up on local tea, he's people watching and dissecting society like a scientist studying some weird new species. Now, Thoreau doesn't exactly have the highest opinion of the villagers. He thinks they're all stuck on the hamster wheel of life, grinding away for money, gossip, and material things that don't really matter. It's like they're in an endless cycle of fetch quests with no meaningful payoff. He's like, why are y'all running around chasing pointless drama when you could be chilling by a pond and contemplating existence? But here's the twist, even though he's not about that life, he's not completely antisocial. Thoreau is cool with dipping into the village every now and then to observe the chaos and remind himself why he chose the whole cabin-in-the-woods lifestyle in the first place. Thoreau gets real about how visiting the village feels like stepping into another world. He's out there living the peaceful nature dream, but the second he sets foot in town, it's all noise, distractions, and people trying to rope him into their nonsense. One time, he even gets arrested because he refuses to pay a poll tax. Yeah, your boy Thoreau got locked up for standing by his principles like a true revolutionary. He's basically like, why should I pay into a system I don't believe in? Y'all can keep your rules. It's giving major lawful rebel energy, like that one character in every anime who fights for justice but doesn't care about the rules. The whole tax drama barely phases him, though. He's out of jail the next day and back at his cabin like nothing happened. Thoreau's not about to let society kill his vibe. His takeaway? The village might be entertaining for a visit, but living there full-time would suck the soul out of him. It's too much noise, too much drama, and way too many people caught up in things that don't matter. He prefers the quiet grind of his pond life, where he can think freely and do his own thing without anyone telling him how to live. Then we roll into chapter 9, the ponds, and this is where Thoreau's nature nerd energy goes full Super Saiyan. He's absolutely obsessed with the ponds around Walden, and he talks about them like they're legendary artifacts in a fantasy game. Walden Pond, of course, is the main star. It's his home base, his safe zone, his everything. He describes its water as super clear and pure, comparing it to a natural mirror that reflects the sky and the trees around it. He's got big this place is sacred vibes, like he's found the ultimate chill spot where all his troubles fade away. But Thoreau doesn't stop at Walden Pond. He's out here ranking the local ponds like a nature influencer reviewing hidden gems. He visits White Pond, another beauty in the area, and gives it props for its crystal clear water and serene vibe. He's like, White Pond is a solid sidekick to Walden, but it'll never be the main character. It's clear he sees ponds as more than just bodies of water. They're symbols of purity, reflection, and the kind of untouched beauty you don't get in the village. It's giving serious Breath of the Wild vibes, where every pond and lake feels like it holds some ancient wisdom. Thoreau gets super poetic about how ponds change with the seasons. In summer, they're vibrant and alive, buzzing with energy like a festival in My Hero Academia. In winter, they freeze over and go quiet, turning into these peaceful, icy realms straight out of Frozen. He's all about how nature has these cycles, and he sees the ponds as a metaphor for life. Sometimes you're full of energy, and sometimes you need to chill and reflect. Thoreau's got this whole life mirrors nature philosophy, and honestly, it's pretty deep. It's like he's saying, hey, maybe we should all take a page out of the ponds book and learn to flow with the seasons. He also gets into the science of the ponds, dropping facts about their depths, colors, and how they connect to the land around them. But don't get it twisted, he's not just flexing his knowledge to sound smart. Thoreau genuinely loves this stuff. He's geeking out about the ponds like they're his favorite fandom, and his enthusiasm is contagious. Even if you're not a nature person, you can't help but feel hyped about how much these ponds mean to him. Thoreau wraps it all up with some big picture thoughts. For him, the ponds aren't just pretty scenery, they're a reminder of how simple and beautiful life can be if you let it. He's like, why are we out here complicating everything when nature is showing us how to live in harmony? He believes the ponds hold the secret to a better way of life, one that's slower, more intentional, and way more connected to the world around us. It's like he's cracked the code on what really matters, and he's out here trying to share it with anyone willing to listen. By the end of these chapters, Thoreau's message is clear: society might have its uses, but nature is where it's at. Whether he's dodging the chaos of the village or geeking out about the ponds, he's constantly searching for that deeper connection to life. He's like, look, I get that not everyone can live in a cabin by a pond, but maybe y'all could at least stop and appreciate the world around you once in a while. It's a call to unplug, step outside, and see the magic in the everyday. And honestly, that's a message that hits just as hard now as it did back in Thoreau's time. So there you have it, chapters 8 and 9 of Walden, summed up in all their nature-loving, society-questioning glory. Thoreau's out here reminding us that life doesn't have to be a constant grind, and sometimes the most profound truths are waiting for you in a quiet pond or a walk in the woods. If that's not peak main character energy, I don't know what is.